Hello everybody, my name is Christian, and oh my god, yes! As per usual with the anniversary, there's a bit of controversy right now, but I personally am so excited to see a fresh set of novaflares for some of the characters in the game who needed it the most. And Firefly, I guess. While still not a perfect batch, it is awesome to see Seele finally buffed, a standard banner character in Welt getting changed, and Huohuo, who I've had a lot of issues with, getting changed as well. What I want to do today is talk you through all of these buffed characters, what changed about them, what they're capable of, and how to build them going forward. Many of these builds haven't really changed from what they used to be, but hey, there's someone here who never thought they would have to build a Welt, and now they want to, and I'm gonna help them out. Make sure to become a YouTube member down below, join the Discord since apparently I haven't plugged that in a while, and let's get into it. As a quick disclaimer, there is some information in this video that has not been fully released yet at the time of writing. Most of it has been, but I want to give you guys the best video possible, so that did require getting a little extra information in there. Warning you all now, in case there are specifics many of you will not care to hear. So, we have 4 novaflared characters as I previously mentioned, but there's one here who stands so far above the rest of them it's not even funny. Welt, a standard banner character with basically no use in today's metagame, is now a usable character. Not just usable either, a very, very good character now in actuality. That is absolutely beautiful to see. I can only hope other standards will soon receive the same treatment as Welt, but I digress. This is an amazing start in terms of standard buffs, and I am so ready to see this man put in some major work again. Now, let's actually talk about Welt. Welt is an imaginary nihility 5-star, and his intended purpose when the game came out was as a general purpose debuffer. His primary mechanic is slow, attached to his skill and ultimate, and he was rewarded for achieving this condition by his overall kit and eidolons. While Welt had a gimmick for sure, it was unfortunately a pretty mediocre one. Slow as a condition is already pretty mid with some very niche uses. The biggest problem is that every instance of slow is attached to someone like Dan Heng and Welt, and they don't have anything else in addition to the slow that'll actually make them worth using. Welt does have some vulnerability on ult, and his personal damage gets better when hitting slowed enemies, but that's really just not good enough at the end of the day. With his debuff ability being pretty miserable compared to the likes of Pela, Silverwolf, all of DOT, Welt was seen to have more usability as a DPS character instead of a debuffer. This was hard with no built-in crit stats, but Welt did a fair amount of damage thanks to the combination of his vulnerability on ult, strong skill damage, and his talent being achieved easily with so many chances to proc slow even at lower effect hit rate levels. From there on, Welt was made to be a DPS character instead, and constantly just saw his usage plummet into the ground from there. There was also a Welt sustain arc which was interesting. With Acheron requiring a second nihility, Welt could fulfill that for her while also slowing enemies into oblivion so that she wouldn't get hit. Definitely hard to do today with some enemies just hitting so hard and some enemies actually forcing damage, but these buffs do bring that back into relevance. That's all I really have to say about that. It was a part of Welt's history, and it is an option now. Now, what you all came here for, Welt's buffs. I don't know who slipped some money under the table to the devs at Huohuo, but the rehaul this man has gotten is truly unbelievable, to say the least. Welt's skill has been buffed to do damage 2 extra times, taking it from 3 instances of damage equal to 216% of his attack to now 360% of his attack. His slow chance has stayed the same, but now his talent multiplier has been altered, and he's been given a trace change. Instead of an additional 60% imaginary damage to slowed enemies on his talent, Welt now does 100% additional imaginary damage to slowed enemies. As for his trace, the Trace Judgment now gives a 120% additional damage instance on skill, or an additional 80% damage instance on basic attack. These all serve as a pretty nice boost to his overall damage output. These buffs have been nice, but now let's dive into the real improvement that Welt got. Welt has been given a new, unique debuff called Weightless. When using ultimate, Welt will apply Weightless to all enemies. Every time an enemy is hit while debuffed with the Weightless condition, their action will be delayed by 4%, up to a maximum of 32% action delay. This combines Welt's chance to imprison enemies, which grants a 12% action delay. In total, Welt can delay enemies by 50%, while reducing their speed up to 25%. This is already unbelievably nice and enables a sustainless playstyle for Welt, or any character in the game in reality. With all of that, we're still not done. The waitlist state reduces enemy defense by 40% and can increase ally damage dealt by 100%, which yes, does include Welt. With these changes to his kit, Welt has become one of the most perfect hybrids in HSR history. A powerful damage dealer capable of decimating single target fights, or a debuffer capable of shredding enemy defense, slowing enemies, and increasing damage dealt by a massive amount. They even buffed his Eidolons to give him more damage dealing capabilities, and kept his very nice energy regen abilities completely intact. This, in my opinion, will go down as one of the best cases of game design in all of HSR, and I am so excited to get my hands on it. Apologies that just the buff section has taken so long for Welt, but I'm just genuinely so excited for this. Now, let's talk about how you actually want to build the old man. Welt has two builds going into the foreseeable future: Support Welt and Main DPS Welt. Let's start with Main DPS Welt. We're going to want Pioneer Diver of Dead Waters ideally, with either the Banana Planar if being run with DHPT and Sunday, or Rudolin Arena as a generalized damage planar that offers crit rate, which Welt has literally 0 of, except at E6. These are by far the best options for him, but in terms of some other options, we have Scholar as a pretty passable choice for his relic set, and Glow Moth can be a great choice as his planar set. For lightcone options, the best choice for DPS Welt is still going to be Acheron's signature cone from what I'm seeing. This is a bit of a hard thing to grab, however, so some other options are going to include Good Night Sleep Well, or Boundless Choreo as a crit band-aid. Lastly, the teammates DPS Welt will want. He'll be a standard crit damage DPS, just with some self-buffs from EHR, so most of the usual teammates will apply here. This includes Sunday and DHPT as a combo, Sparkle, RMC, Tribby, Robin, and even Ceridra, since a lot of his damage is in fact skill damage, and he can benefit from a lot of the buffs that Ceridra specifically gives. Lastly, he's also a great character for sustainless comps like I mentioned earlier, so taking 3 of the characters listed above is absolutely a viable option. That's DPS Welt done, so now let's talk about Support Welt. Support Welt will still be able to do quite a bit of damage, but your main focus will be applying slow consistently and using ultimate a lot. For this build, maxing out energy regen with Von Whack or Lushaka is a really good option, and Cypher Cone could be an extremely competitive option for him as a support. Resolution Shines his Pearls of Sweat is another great way to increase his defense shred even further. In terms of relic sets, for supportive Welt, I would personally say Eagle has the highest ceiling for those capable of using it to its full potential. Otherwise, Pioneer Diver or 2-piece speed will both work for Welt as well. This form of Welt is a bit more boring in my opinion, but this will likely be the form that keeps him relevant in the meta for a long time to come, so understanding it now is a better choice than not. Alright, so that was 2 whole pages about Welt, but as I said previously, I think he is the most unique change in novaflare history, and I am so happy to see him thriving once again. His strength is pretty undeniable, and thanks to the simplicity of his kit and a lot of the simple buffs that he offers to himself and his team, this feels like a design that can stay far into the future. That is absolutely wonderful to see, and now we can talk about my own personal devil, and probably the most requested novaflare in all of HSR, Seele. Seele is a Quantum Hunt 5-star released at the launch of HSR. She is tied for the oldest character in the game and has essentially received no support for specifically her since Sparkle in 2.0. Seele was one of the strongest characters in the game during its early updates, but around the release of Acheron, Seele got put down and never rose back up. She was outclassed in damage, she had no supports custom made for her, and required insane sustainless playstyles alongside extreme relic and builds to have a chance at content that Phase Shower Acheron could sleepwalk their way through with their premium teams. This was mainly due to the uniqueness of Seele's main mechanic, and that also ultimately ended up being her undoing in a sense. Seele's primary mechanic is known as Resurgence, and it comes from her talent. When any enemy is defeated, Seele will be able to take an extra turn and do another skill or basic attack, while also doing 80% increased damage. This is a great mechanic in theory, as weaker enemies were perfect fodder for Seele to tear apart with his attack, and then she could annihilate a boss afterward with her increased damage. She also had a great trace to assist with the damage of Resurgence, giving her a 20% res pen boost while she is buffed. This is honestly an amazing trace that still holds up to this day as a great boost for her, which is also why it's completely untouched. Seele, in reality, was just a victim of power creep and having a mechanic that was really hard to consistently make use of. Players have forced her to work for the longest time thanks to her unique abilities and gameplay interactions, but she still sits near the bottom of the tier list and is a waste of time in most players' opinions. So now that we have the history out of the way, how could they have possibly fixed Seele when she had such fundamental issues? Well, dear viewer, they doubled down! Seele's buffs haven't reworked the way she functions or plays or anything like that. Instead, they just made her a hell of a lot better at what she's already good at. It sounds like a dangerous recipe that could backfire, but the end result here is very impressive nonetheless. First of all, Seele's skill has had its damage increased from 220% to 360%. Her ultimate has been raised from 425 to 720%. Now, the fun part. Seele will launch an additional instance of her skill when an ally attacks a target below 50% of their max HP. This can activate once per turn and resets when Seele moves. This is capable of triggering Resurgence as well, since it is an instance of skill, meaning you could skill 4 times in a row technically. That is unbelievable. The other major change to Seele was to her major trace, Nightshade. This trace now increases her damage by 50% every time she gets a kill. This lasts for 3 turns and can stack up to 3 times, meaning Seele could have a damage increase of 150%. These changes are pretty simple and a lot less was changed compared to Welt, but these buffs have revitalized Seele an insane amount, making her one of, if not the strongest character in mob fights in the entire game at high level. Her damage output has already improved substantially thanks to the additional skill, but now with that damage boost as well, Seele is an absolute force to be reckoned with. I do still have some issues with these buffs admittedly, as Seele still really struggles in fights without small mobs or without weaker elites to farm. At that point, her performance difference is so minimal that every character who is already better than her is still going to be better than her. What really matters though is the other fights that fulfill what she needs, or maybe even the game mode with constant small mob spawns. Yeah, Seele will be an unbelievable character going forward. Let's now move on to the build for Seele, and this is still pretty consistent with what it's been for a long time. The ideal set for Seele is going to be the Quantum set, Genius of Brilliant Stars. As for her planar, your best option is Rudolent Arena, since most of Seele's damage is skill damage. Last but not least for her Lightcone, her signature is still a top option for her, although Archer Cone does serve her well if you have Sparkle on your team to make use of its effect. In terms of other options, Scholar is a good option for Seele that still does work very well if you have no other source of defense shred available on your team. Planars, it really doesn't have to be anything specific, I'm gonna be honest. And other Lightcone options include the Hertashop Lightcone Cruising and Swordplay. While a lot of Seele's issues still remain, her power level has risen dramatically, and that is awesome to see for the players who love her and have made her work. The best part about this all though, is that she's good now, so Seele min-maxers can finally shut up about how good they are at the game and how bad everyone else is. Hallelujah! Yes, I still have a lot of pent-up aggression towards them. They were very mean. We have 2 characters left on the chopping block today, and yeah, I have thoughts on both of them. Let's start with Huohuo. Huohuo is an Abundance Wind 5-star, and she was released back in version 1.5. She is a unique healer, having the ability to increase attack and energy for all of her allies on top of her healing. However, that's about all she brings to the team, and her heals are genuinely not amazing. Obviously, it's hard to compare when characters like Hyacinth and DHPT exist in the sustain category, but Huohuo has lagged behind other characters for a while now. Her utility was also pretty heavily limited in Amphorius, as most characters didn't need energy as much as they need a specific support or specific sustain. She has always existed as the yeah that works option, with not many teams truly wanting her above all other options. The only ones off the top of my head are Aglaya and Saber, who are both good but not great currently. Elation has been a pretty good time for Huohuo, as these ults are huge for Elation characters. This gave her a niche back finally, but her overall output was still pretty poor all things considered. So how did they fix Huohuo, you ask? What great new features did they give to make her more relevant in an age where sustains have become less essential and more over the top in their capabilities? Well, viewer, they gave her basically nothing. Genuinely, this is one of, if not the worst, novaflare in HSR history. Huohuo's changes are pretty easy to see. She does slightly more healing on skill. When battle starts, she will now regen 30 energy and gain an extra turn of Divine Provision, to start the battle, now sitting at 2. Last but not least, when using an ultimate, if an ally has 160 energy or more, Huohuo will grant a 24% attack boost. These changes are okay at best. The attack boost is nice, but not super helpful all things considered, and it's only usable by non-HP scalers, so Saber, Aglaia, Thurda, Robin, and Elation characters. The increased healing on skill is nice, but if you're dying with Huohuo, it's during the in-between of her turns anyway. Divine Provision is still the same amount of healing as before, with the same trigger, just with a slightly longer duration every time you cast it. It makes her slightly more SP positive, but her energy gain is still minimal regardless. Now, we come up on the single most infuriating part of it all. They changed her E1. They made it so that with E1, her outgoing healing is 20% better when Divine Provision is up. This is scummy and miserable, and I'm not gonna pretend for a second like it isn't. They put one of the better solutions to her kit in a goddamn Eidolon. That is awful design, and I hate it. This is my least favorite change they've done in a novaflare, and we haven't even talked about Firefly yet. My god, they did not do much with her. Anyway, yeah, we can move on to her build now before I actively blow up a metropolitan area like I'm Nappa from DBZ. Huohuo's ideal build is pretty easy since the support set, Warrior Goddess of Sun and Thunder, is amazing for basically all healers right now. Offering speed and a damage boost, it's hard to argue with this set as a great best-in slot for her. Your other options are Passerby of Wandering Cloud, or just 2-piece sets. For her planar, I'm not gonna lie, there's actually a lot of different options. We got Lushaka, Broken Keel, Fleet of the Ageless, or Von Whack as all great options for her. If you want a nice general set though, then Tree of Brooding is my top choice. Offering speed and an outgoing healing boost, it's hard to complain about what this set brings. Last but not least is a Lightcone, where her signature Night of Fright is king. After Night of Fright, Post-op Conversation is a great choice for energy regen and healing, with Quid Pro Quo being a great supportive option to help you regen more energy for allies. Huohuo is not exactly what I wanted after her novaflare, but she is even better for her good teams, and is seemingly the sustain for Elation teams going forward. Grabbing her from the shop if you have a token on hand may just be the right choice. Last but not least is Firefly, and politely, this is also one of the worst novaflares in history. It's for some different reasons, but yeah, it's not a good look. I know back-to-back that's a bit upsetting to hear for some of you, but this was just such a weird choice. Firefly was already a meta character who was top tier even before her buffs. As a result of this, her buffs really didn't touch on as much as some of the other characters, and that's a bit depressing to see when there are a lot of characters who needed it way more. When you're one of the most popular characters in HSR history, it's to be expected you do get some special treatment. But why wasn't the special treatment even, that good? Let's talk about things a bit deeper instead of just dancing around the subject. Firefly is a Fire Destruction 5-star released in version 2.3. She is one of the 3 premier break DPS in the game, an archetype that was recently revived by the Dahlia to be one of the strongest teams in HSR overall. Firefly is a transformation character, using her ultimate to shift into a more powerful form where she can deal blast damage and has an easier time breaking targets. While not a perfect kit design, the existence of the Dahlia fixed up Firefly a lot. She has had her uptime massively buffed thanks to the Dahlia's energy regen, she can deal damage even when enemies aren't broken, and her actual damage when enemies are already broken has now been improved majorly so that she can keep up with the other top tier characters. Her buffs were unexpected to say the least, but could have been a nice change of pace to maybe make her more similar to her form in Currency Wars, and finally give her some more beneficial scaling off of Super Break itself. What we ended up actually getting was part of that. Firefly's buffs were entirely within her major traces and her E2. Her trace Anti-Lag Outburst has been changed to give her additional break effect in Complete Combustion, and she can now delay her Complete Combustion timer by up to 30% every use of her ultimate. Next up is her second trace, Auto-Reactive Armor. This trace has been changed to lower her break effect requirements and reward her with up to 3 times as much super break damage on her attacks. The trace changes are what matter more for the average player, so focusing on these real quick, these are solid changes. Rewarding Firefly even more for actually having break effect is a great choice that helps within the current landscape of the game, since stealth buffs for other characters are so strong now. I do, however, take some issue with the other change, as I personally would have liked to see Sam in Complete Combustion permanently like in Currency Wars. Giving Firefly a new ult would have allowed her to still use the Dahlia's trace to its full potential, and it would have eliminated that very annoying point in the middle of a fight with Firefly where you're just stuck out of form for no reason, but then you get it back right after, so you're just doing nothing for a single turn. While this is a fine change and great for zero cycling, I think this goes pretty heavily alongside her E2 changes. Her E2 has had one simple change. You can now get an extra turn on every single one of Sam's turns, instead of having a 1-turn cooldown every time. Simple change, but genuinely a world of difference damage-wise. All in all, these changes are okay. Pretty helpful objectively, but I would have liked way more interesting changes, even if it wasn't going to be quite as efficient damage-wise. However, that's probably just a me thing. Now, Firefly's build. This is the same build she's had since she released. Grab the Super Break set Cavalry with Calpagni Lantern as her planar. I mean this so genuinely, do not bother with anything else. It is a massive waste of time for you and her. In terms of light cones, her signature is great for her, with surprisingly Fine Uncone being a great alternative thanks to her reliance on high speed and its very nice base attack stat. After that, the Hertashop Destruction Cone and Indelible Promise are good free-to-play options. Not much to say about Firefly. She's a great character and way stronger now, cementing herself as easily a top 5 DPS in the game at all levels as long as you have Dahlia. Otherwise, yeah, I think a wet piece of cardboard could do a little bit more. With Firefly done, that wraps up our talk for today. It's been a long time since I made one of these, and I like to think I've gotten a little bit better at understanding building and theory crafting since that moment. Tell me what you guys think in the comments about these buffs, if you're excited to build these novaflared characters, and who you guys want buffed next. I've got plenty more good videos coming out soon, so I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye!